Today on the audio hotline, we're doing something a little bit crazy. I decided to grab all of my Shure microphones and just put them in a big comparison. All of the microphones in this big comparison video, I either have videos out for them or there will be videos out for them shortly. But a vast majority of them do have reviews out for them. The goal of the video today is to show which microphones would be best for you potentially in a podcast spoken word recording situation. If you want me to do like a guitar comparison with all of these microphones, let me know down below. I could definitely make something like that happen. But since a lot of these microphones are talked about constantly when it comes to podcasting and content creation, I really just wanted to do a giant Shure podcast shootout, a Shure shootout. As I'm sure you've been able to tell up on the screen, I'm already switching in between these microphones. So anytime I switch a microphone, I will have it labeled up on the screen. Currently, I have the Shure MV7X, the Shure SM7b, and the Shure MV7. The MV7, I will be using this as a USB microphone. Considering the MV7X is the XLR version of this microphone, even though the MV7 has an XLR port. But the XLR jack on the MV7 doesn't sound as good as the microphone in USB mode, so I'll just be using the MV7X as the XLR version of essentially the MV7. And if you are looking to get an XLR microphone, I would urge you to look at the MV7X rather than using the XLR jack on the MV7. But not only will I bring in all of the similar microphones and compare all of them, I will also do a gigantic blind comparison with every single microphone involved. So if you're worried I'm not going to put the SM7b up against the PGA48, you're damn wrong. I'm going to do it. So I'm putting these more broadcast style microphones up first, then we'll go on to the more handheld dynamics, and then I do also have a few handheld condensers as well as like an instrument condenser microphone. All of the microphones that are going to be in this video I'll put up on the screen right now. You can just read through them. I don't have every Shure microphone, but damn, I do have a lot. I believe it's actually 13 microphones total. I understand the recording situation isn't absolutely ideal and perfect right now, but during the blind comparison, it will be. But today, I'm not going to be going through all of the different specs. Like I said, I do have reviews for a lot of these microphones. If you want some more specifics, I'll link whatever reviews I do have down in the description, but I'll just briefly talk about the pricing of the microphones and just some small details. Obviously, all of the pricing is relevant to when I shot this video, which is September 13th, 2022. But as of right now, the Shure MV7X goes for $180. The Shure SM7b goes for $399, and the SM7b is in fact the most expensive microphone in this comparison video, and the Shure MV7 comes in at $249. The Shure MV7 is the only USB microphone that's going to be in this video. It is nice that the MV7 does have a USB and XLR jack, but like I said earlier, the MV7X is definitely the superior XLR microphone. All of these could be considered like broadcast-style dynamic cardioid microphones. Now, there's a lot of controversy when it comes to the SM7B. Usually, it is pretty loved. However, a lot of people get it for podcasting, and they kind of don't understand why it's so hyped. Personally, I don't think the SM7B is like the end-all, be-all for podcasting microphones. I would actually take the Electro Voice RE20 over the SM7B if it was exclusively for podcasting. However, if I brought music into that topic, and I said I wanted to record a vocalist, a screamer, a guitar player, I would say that the SM7B is going to be a more versatile, better option in that situation. The SM7B is a pretty gain-hungry microphone, meaning that you need to boost the gain on your preamp quite a bit more to get a good signal. And that's actually one of the reasons it's really ideal for loud singers or screamers. However, when you're doing like podcasting spoken word, it can be a little bit of a struggle. And that's why a lot of people will bring in the like Triton Fethead, which is a microphone activator, or the very famous Cloud Lifter SM7B combination. These are both options. So when it comes to podcasting, yes, I do think the SM7B is a little bit overrated. I still think it's a fantastic microphone that is very easy to post-process and get a great sound out of. But most people could get away with a cheaper option. But currently in the Zoom F6, I have the MV7X set at 30 decibels, the SM7B at 40 decibels, and in the computer, the MV7 is set to 27 decibels. And now just for some very fast tests, starting with the MV7X. If you get really close to the Shure MV7X, here's how it sounds. If you get really close to the Shure SM7B, here's how it sounds. And if you get really close to the Shure MV7, here's how it sounds. Now a real quick plosive test with the provided windscreens on. Starting with the MV7X, plosive test with some pickled peanutses. pickled penises. Plosive test with some pickled penises. Pickled penises. Plosive test with some pickled penises. Pickled penises. And now for a real quick untreated room test with these three microphones. Right now I am currently recording in a untreated, very reverberant room. I have some adorable balloons behind me. I made this balloon arch for this video. Okay, that's not true. It was just my wife's birthday, and I was like, hey, gotta record in this room anyway. Why not balloon arch it, you know? But when it comes to audio quality and everything, this room is definitely not ideal. I'm sure even with these dynamic microphones, you'll be able to hear a little bit of echo, a little bit of reverb. But that's why we're doing this test. We're gonna see which one rejects that the best. So let's just go ahead and run through each of these really quick. I'm sure that I've already went through it once, but let's just do it for funsies. Right now, I'm talking into the Shure MV7X in this untreated room. Now I'm recording with the Shure SM7b in this untreated room. Now I'm recording with the Shure MV7 in USB mode in this untreated room. The usual room that I record in isn't honestly entirely treated or anything. However, it does have a lot of equipment, a lot of stuff in it, so it definitely helps the overall sound. But now let's go ahead and jump into the next group of microphones. Now we have three other Shure classic microphones plugged into the Zoom F6. Right here on my left, your right, is the Shure SM58. Right here in the middle, we got the cute little SM57. We have the Shure Beta 58A. All of these microphones are very well known. You could find all of them, or a majority of them, on stages all around the world. Now, the Shure SM58 goes for around $100, much like the Shure SM57. Now, the Shure Beta 58A actually goes for $169. So I decided to put these three microphones up against each other. They're the $100 and up handheld dynamic microphones. The next test I'll do is with the other handheld dynamic microphones that are kind of the cheaper ones. But like I said before, all of them will go against each other in the blind comparison. I just don't think I could place 7 microphones and have them equally pick up my voice in this situation, so I wanted it to be somewhat fair during this section. These are all just built incredible. Don't get me wrong, a lot of handheld dynamic microphones are built really well, but I feel like Shure kind of set the standard. But the Shure SM58 is a classic vocalist microphone. The SM57 is known for voice, but it's actually most known for instruments. A lot of guitar takes that I've played have went into an SM57. And your Beta 58A, some vocalists I would say look at it as like the upgrade to the Shure SM58. But actually the Beta 58A and the SM58 are a little bit different. The SM58 and the SM57 are cardioid dynamic microphones, but the Beta 58A is actually a super cardioid microphone. But based off of the polar patterns and where they reject sound, you can kind of use these all on stage in different situations. Like for instance, if you had 2 wedge monitors pointed up toward the vocalist like this, the Beta 58A might be a better choice. But if you had the monitor directly behind the microphone, the SM58 would be a better choice because that's where it rejects noise the best. Where the Beta 58A has a little area of sensitivity directly behind it. So obviously, different people like different things, they like different sounds, and they like the different use cases when it comes to the different polar patterns. But when it comes to that polar pattern, you can also use that to your advantage in your studio if you are using one of these for podcasting. This is how these microphones sound with each of their designated windscreens. They don't come with windscreens, but you can buy some for relatively cheap. But since they don't come with windscreens, I will do the testing without them. I guarantee I'm going to get some of these numbers mixed up, but starting with the Shure SM58, here's how it sounds when you get really close to the SM58. And now here's how it sounds when you get really close to the Shure SM57. And now I'm super duper ultra close to the Shure Beta 58A. Now let's go ahead and pop some plosives into these mics. It's going to get loud. Plosive test with some pickled penises. Pickled penises. Plosive test with some pickled penises. Pickled penises. Plosive test with some pickled penises. Pickled penises. Now this is a handheld test for the Shure SM58. This is a handheld test for the Shure SM57. Now this is a handheld test for the Beta 58A. Now let's go ahead and go into a very reverberant room and see how all of these sound. Now I have these really popular handheld dynamic microphones plugged in front of this adorable balloon arch. And starting on your left, this is the Beta 58A. In the middle, we have the SM57. And last but of course not least, we have the Shure SM58. And as I mentioned before, the 58A is a super cardioid microphone, while the SM57 and 58 are cardioid. So they do reject noise in a little bit different ways. I've already been switching these microphones, but let's go ahead and single each one of these out and test it in this very untreated reverberant room. First up, we have the Shure Beta 58A. Here's how it sounds in an untreated room. Next, we have the SM57, and this is how it rejects the reverb and echo from this untreated room. And last, we have the Shure SM58, and here's how it rejects noise in an untreated room. Now, even though these microphones will do a good job in this situation, they probably won't be perfect. Now that we've done the room rejection test for these very popular microphones, now let's go ahead and go back into the much better sounding room. Wow, I feel like the president of like the WNBA up here, or like a really good athlete. But I'm not. Don't be confused just because all these microphones, I'm not a good athlete. But now I have the more inexpensive handheld dynamic microphones in front of me. Starting on your right, this guy right here, we got the PGA58. And this microphone is the most expensive of the bunch. It goes for $59. And currently going into the Zoom F6, I have this set at 30 decibels. Next to that is the PGA48 that goes for $39, and I currently have this set to 28 decibels. Now next to that, this one right here is the SM48 that goes for $39.99, so 99 cents more than the PGA48. And actually the SM48 requires the most gain at 32 decibels. Currently the SM48 is the only microphone that doesn't have an on and off switch on it. All of the other microphones right here do. However, for a $10 upcharge, you actually can get the SM48 with the on and off switch if that matters to you. And then you have this one on your far left that is the Shure SV100 that goes for $29.99, so it is the cheapest. And this one is currently requiring 28 decibels of gain. Like I said before, this isn't like the absolute best way to record these all super fairly or anything, but during the blind comparison, you'll definitely hear a very fair comparison. I believe the only microphone that I haven't reviewed out of this bunch is the PG48. This one right here. That's something that I'll definitely plan on getting to eventually doing a full review of it. But I'm going to put the Shure windscreens on these microphones, and you'll be able to hear if there are any tonal differences once I put those on. Usually windscreens do tend to kill a little bit of high end, so if one of these microphones is a little too top heavy for you, sometimes a windscreen can help that. The amount of cat hair that gets on these windscreens is the reason that I have so many lint rollers. But here's just a real quick sound test with the windscreen. I'll just switch between the microphones and just ramble for a second so I have time to switch between the microphones so you can hear if there are any tonal differences with the windscreen on. So hopefully I've given myself plenty of time so you can hear the differences with the windscreen on. Now let's go ahead and pop some peas. We'll start on your right with the PGA58. Pickled peanuts, 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 pickled peanuts. Now I'll take these windscreens off and we'll do another quick plosive test. Once again, we'll start with the PGA58 with some plosives. Pickled peanuts, 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 pickled peanuts. Now if you get really close to the PGA58, here's how the proximity effect sounds. And now if you get really close to the PGA48, here's how the proximity effect sounds. Now if you get really close to the SM48, here's how the proximity effect sounds. Now if you get really close to the SV100, here's how the proximity effect sounds. Now this is a handheld test for the PGA58. This is a handheld test for the PGA48. This is a handheld microphone test for the Shure SM48. Now this is a handheld test for the SV100. But now we'll go over to that untreated room test and see how these microphones do. Now I have the less expensive handheld dynamic microphones in the untreated, very reverberant room. Starting on your left, this is the PGA48. Then I have the SV100 in the middle. Then I have the SM48. And underneath here, you might not be able to see it super well, but it is the PGA58. And this is ridiculous. But these microphones range from $29 to $59. But let's go ahead and single each of these microphones out and see how they do in this room. First, we'll start with the PGA48. Here's how this microphone sounds in this very reverberant room. Next, we'll go to the SV100. Here is how the SV100 sounds in an untreated room. Next, we are on to the Shure SM48. Here's how this sounds in an untreated room. And last, we are on to the PGA58, and here's how this microphone sounds in this untreated room. Now, if you are looking for a microphone to start recording like a podcast or something, one of these microphones actually may work well for you because a lot of people that are starting out don't have their rooms treated. They might be recording in a room like this that isn't ideal. And I will tell you, when it comes to noise rejection or room rejection, any of these microphones are going to perform a lot better than like the Blue Yeti. And you could get one of these microphones in the Behringer UM2 or the M Audio M-Track Solo. That name always trips me up. I think I got it right though. But you could get pretty much any of these microphones plus one of those interfaces for around the same price as the Blue Yeti or even less. But if you do have an untreated room and you're looking to step up your audio, these could be a good inexpensive option, just depending on which one you like. But now that we've tried out these inexpensive handheld dynamic microphones in this untreated room, let's go back into the better sounding room. Now we're on to this last section of microphones. These are the condenser microphones that I have, which two of these do make sense in a podcast situation. I would say the one that makes the least amount of sense is the PGA181, which is on your right. This microphone is actually designed for instruments, but on Shure's website, it says that it is also used for voice, that it can be used for voice, so we're giving it a little test. And just so you know, all of these do require 48 volts of phantom power. But I actually think that handheld condenser microphones like these can be a little bit underrated when it comes to like spoken word and podcasting. I think they actually do a pretty good job, and they're solid when it comes to rejecting room noise and everything. But you'll be able to hear these versus the dynamic microphones here in a little bit during that blind comparison. But just to go over some basic details like I have been for each microphone, starting on your right, it is the PGA181. This microphone goes for $99. This is a small diaphragm condenser microphone, and it has a cardioid polar pattern. And to be completely real and transparent with you, this is the first time I've ever pulled this microphone out of the box. But as you can see, the PGA181 is actually the only side address microphone in this whole comparison video. Now, the middle microphone is the Beta 87A, and I do have a review for this microphone. This microphone is the most expensive out of these three. This goes for $259. Out of these three, the Beta 87A is the only microphone with a super cardioid polar pattern. And the microphone on your left is the Shure SM86. I also do have a review of this microphone, but it is an old review. I haven't watched it in a long time, and I'm sure it's a little cringy. But the SM86 goes for $189. But now I'm going to put on the windscreens for the Beta 87A and the SM86. These microphones do not come with these windscreens, but there is a windscreen made for this style of microphone. I'll leave a link to this windscreen and the other windscreens down in the description, but I believe the model is the A85WS, and it goes for around $12 to $15. But since I am going to be using protection with these two microphones here, I'll also just use like a generic pop filter for the PGA181. The PGA181 doesn't come with a windscreen or pop filter, so I'll just go with this very basic, simple one that you can get on Amazon for cheap. Okay, I actually went with a different pop filter because that one was way too gigantic, but in this situation, it's a little bit different with the three microphones really close together, so I'm sure that if you were going to get the PGA181, you could use that regular one, no problem. Oddly enough, this pop filter looks like insanely close in this shot, but it's actually like 4 inches away, and I'm actually quite a bit further from the microphones than it looks. But here's the sound of all the microphones with some protection on, with these two having the actual windscreen on that is recommended by Shure, which I mean is definitely a good thing. Mic technique can get you far, but if you are just starting out, having, a pop filter or windscreen is a good idea. But now let's go ahead and run through those few tests that I've been doing for each of these microphones. Let's go ahead and start with plosives. We'll go ahead and kick it off with the PGA181. Plosive test with some pickled peanuts. Pickled peanuts. 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 Alright, now let's get really close to the PGA181. Here's how the proximity effect sounds on that. And now let's get really close to the Beta 87A. Here's how that sounds. And now let's get really close to the Shure SM86. Here's how that proximity effect sounds. Once again, I will take these microphones into an untreated room, just a very reverberant room, and we'll see how these perform in that situation. Now we have the condenser microphones plugged in this untreated room. Based off of form factor and the fact that it is a condenser microphone, I would assume that the PGA181 is going to do the worst in this room, but we'll see. Starting on your left, we have the Beta 87A. Here in the middle, we have the PGA181. And last, we have the SM86. But now let's go ahead and single each of these microphones out and test them in this very reverberant, untreated room. Starting with the Beta 87A, here's how it sounds in an untreated room, and here's how it rejects that reverb and echo. Now this is the PGA181 microphone. Here's how it sounds in an untreated room, and here's how it rejects that reverb and echo. Next we have the Shure SM86. Here's how it sounds in an untreated room, and here's how it rejects that reverb and echo. Well, now that we've tried out these few condenser microphones, now let's go ahead and go back into the better sounding room. Now we've gone through all 4 sections, the first one being the broadcast dynamics, then the little bit more expensive handheld dynamics, then the cheaper handheld dynamics, and then a couple handheld condenser microphones, and then, the side address condenser. Now that we've gone through all of that, I think we're finally ready to get into the gigantic blind comparison. And just so you know, these blind comparisons do get repetitive, and you do need to kind of hyper focus a little bit because it can go a little bit fast. But I will make it so all of the microphones go against each other at least one time. So once the blind comparison microphone reveal actually does happen, you can go back and listen to that comparison once again if you want to. That way you can actually pinpoint 2 microphones that you're considering getting and hearing them against each other. So let's go ahead and get into the blind comparison. I will, of course, first start with a little bit of a palate cleanser microphone. Here's just a real quick palate cleanser microphone. It's just the microphone that was already up on my boom arm, so I went with it. This is the Fifine K688, but I just briefly wanted to use a microphone that you hadn't heard in this review so far, but now that your ears are just so clean, just squeaky clean, you could eat off those ears. But now let's go ahead and get into that blind comparison. Here is the first sound test for microphone number 1. Here is the first sound test for microphone number 2. Here is the first sound test for microphone number 3. Here is the first sound test for microphone number 4. Here is the first sound test for microphone number 5. Here is the first sound test for microphone number 6. Here's the first sound test for microphone number 7. Here's the first sound test for microphone number 8. Here is the first sound test for microphone number 9. Here is the first sound test for microphone number 10. Here is the first sound test for microphone number 11. Here is the first sound test for microphone number 12. Here's the first sound test for microphone lucky number 13. Second round audio test for trusty little microphone 1. Second round audio test for trusty little microphone number 3. Second round audio test for trusty little microphone number 5. Second round audio test for trusty little microphone number 7. Second round audio test for trusty little microphone number 9. Second round audio test for trusty little microphone number 11. Second round audio test for trusty little microphone 13. Second round audio test for trusty little microphone number 2. Second round audio test for trusty little microphone number 4. Second round audio test for trusty little microphone number 6. Second round audio test for trusty little microphone number 8. Second round audio test for trusty little microphone number 10. Second round audio test for trusty little microphone 12. Now this is the third sound test for microphone number 1 in this comparison. Now this is the third sound test for microphone number 4 in this blind comparison. Now this is the third sound test for microphone number 7 in this blind comparison. Now this is the third sound test for microphone number 10 in this blind comparison. Now this is the third sound test for microphone number 13 in this blind comparison. Now this is the third sound test for microphone number 3 in this comparison. Now this is the third sound test for microphone number 6 in this blind comparison. Now this is the third sound test for microphone number 9 in this blind comparison. Now this is the third sound test for microphone number 12 in this blind comparison. Now this is the third sound test for microphone number 2 in this blind comparison. Now this is the third sound test for microphone number 5 in this blind comparison. Now this is the third sound test for microphone number 8 in this blind comparison. Now this is the third sound test for microphone number 11 in this blind comparison. Good old fourth round test for microphone number 1. Good old fourth round test for microphone number 5. Good old fourth round test for microphone number 9. Good old fourth round test here for microphone number 13. Good old fourth round test for microphone number 4. Good old fourth round test for microphone number 8. Good old fourth round test for microphone number 12. Good old fourth round test for microphone number 3. Good old fourth round test for microphone number 7. Good old fourth round test for microphone number 11. Good old fourth round test for microphone number 2. Good old fourth round test for microphone number 6. Good old fourth round test for microphone number 10. Sound test number 5 for microphone number 1. Sound test number 5 for microphone number 6. Sound test number 5 for microphone number 11. Sound test number 5 for microphone number 3. Sound test number 5 for microphone number 8. Sound test number 5 for microphone 13. Sound test 5 for microphone number 5. Sound test number 5 for microphone number 10. Sound test number 5 for microphone number 2. Sound test number 5 for microphone number 7. Sound test number 5 for microphone number 12. Sound test number 5 for microphone number 4. Sound test number 5 for microphone number 9. Now this is the final sound test for microphone number 1. Now this is the last sound test for microphone number 7. Now this is the last sound test for microphone number 13. Now this is the last sound test for microphone number 6. Now this is the last sound test for microphone number 12. And this is the last sound test for microphone number 5. Last sound test here for microphone number 11. Now this is the last sound test for microphone number 4. Now this is the last sound test for microphone number 10. This is the last sound test for microphone number 3. Now this is the last sound test for microphone number 9. Now this is the last sound test for microphone number 2. Now this is the last sound test for microphone number 8. Wow, you did it. That's impressive. It was a little touch and go there at times, and I was kind of worried for you. I know that was a long one, but I know for a fact you're ready for the big reveal, so here's the comparison order. Microphone number 1 was the Shure MV7X that comes in at $179. Microphone number 2 was the Shure SV100. This is in fact the cheapest microphone in this comparison, and this microphone goes for $29.99. Microphone number 3 was the classic Shure SM58 that usually comes in around $100. Microphone number 4 was the Shure SM48, and this microphone usually goes for $40. $50 with an on and off switch. Microphone number 5 was the Beta 87A, the handheld condenser microphone that comes in around $259. Microphone number 6 was the most expensive microphone in this comparison, the Shure SM7b, coming in at $399. Microphone number 7 is known more as an instrument microphone, but it is the Shure SM57. This microphone usually comes in at $100. Microphone number 8 was the Shure PGA48 that goes for about $39. Microphone number 9 was the Shure SM86. It is a handheld condenser microphone that goes for around $189. Microphone number 10 was the Beta 58A that comes in around $169. Microphone number 11 was the Shure MV7. This was plugged in as a USB microphone with no post-processing on it, and this goes for $249. Microphone number 12 was the only side address microphone in this comparison. It was the PGA181, and this microphone currently goes for around $99. Microphone number 13 was the Shure PGA58. This microphone usually goes for about $59. Well, now we've officially made it through that lengthy and very repetitive blind comparison. And I just want to say, if you've made it this far in this video, you are awesome. I'm going to give you one of these. You did good. You made it. Now this video is purely just to do a Shure shootout. This isn't really a review of mine. I wasn't intending on giving you my opinion. However, I'm going to say a couple quick things because why not? I think the love that a lot of people have for Shure microphones is the fact that they're just tried and true. They've been tested, they've been put through hell, and they've lasted. Honestly, all of these Shure microphones, incredibly built. Even the cheapest SV100 still built really well for $30. When it comes to the test with the inexpensive Shure microphones, I personally give it up for the SM48. I think that microphone sounds solid. It's built like a 58 pretty much. When they are right next to each other, you can tell they are a little bit different. The SM58 does kind of have more of a sheen on the handle. Quite honestly, I think there are other microphone companies that make cheap microphones that are better than Shure's cheaper options. However, I feel like the SM48 is absolutely in the conversation for, under $50 microphones. It is a solid mic. And if I were to recommend a microphone in that cheaper price category, I would go with that. Because when it comes to sound, it's absolutely competitive and better than some of those cheaper options. But when it comes to that mid-tier range with the SM57, the 58, and the Beta 58A, with these, I think it's just going to come down to what you need to record. The SM57 is obviously the option for instruments. It does a better job. But when it comes to the 58 and the Beta 58A, it'll come down to what sound you like more, but also what polar pattern you need and how you need sound rejected. If I'm going to tell you a quick secret, I would actually go with the SM57 for podcasting. I actually recorded a whole episode on the SM57 on this new podcast I'm doing with Jeremy from Shure Mics. The podcast is called Obscure Hotline, and if you want to go check that episode out where I tested out the SM57 on it just with a long form podcast, I'll link that episode down below. But I think the SM57 is an incredibly versatile microphone. You can record instruments, podcasts, you can record vocals with it. It is a solid microphone. It doesn't handle plosives as well as the other microphones, the 58 and the Beta 58A, but the 57 has a windscreen that's designed for it. I love that windscreen and it works really well for spoken word. When it comes to packing a punch for the price, the 57 is amazing. Now with these condenser microphones, I gotta say, I actually liked all of them, and I was actually surprised how much I liked the PGA181. I'm a big fan of the SM86, I've liked it for a long time, and honestly, I really like the Beta 87A too. I actually think both of these microphones sound really good in a podcast situation. I do like the 87A slightly more, but if you're trying to save a little bit of money, I think the SM86 is still a good option. When it comes to the MV7X and the MV7, they're fine. I get it. People like the look of it. They like the look of the SM7b. And this is a Shure microphone that resembles it. You can absolutely get great sounding results with both of these microphones. Don't get me wrong. But I think there are other microphones out there around the same price or even less expensive that give you just as good of a result, if not better. For instance, the microphone that I used as the palette cleanser, the K688 from Five Fine. Five Fine isn't known as well as Shure. And would I use that microphone for anything other than podcasting? No, probably not. And I totally get on board with supporting companies that have been around and done a good job for a long time. But I also do love supporting new companies. So it's really hard for me to sometimes decide what to recommend. And it's a compromise that you'll have to decide to pay more and go with a more known company, or pay less, get maybe a better result or just as good, and take a little bit more of a risk from a lesser known company. These are decisions I can't make for you, and this is why I'm just doing the shootout. You can listen to these microphones, you can go listen to other microphones that I've reviewed and decide which one will work best for you and your budget. Now, to single out the SM7B, I know there's some controversy out there like I've talked about before. Some people like it, some people think it's overrated, some people hate it. But I've got to tell you, I love this microphone. But my love for this microphone doesn't necessarily come from podcasting. I do think it sounds good, and you can get an amazing sound with it. And if you're willing to spend the money and you care about the look and you want it to look like an SM7B, then go for it. But there are microphones out there that are designed for spoken word that are half the price of this, and they'll probably give you a better result out of the box. However, if you love post-processing and that's where you like to put your flavor on it, it's really hard to beat this microphone because you can really manipulate it in post, and it'll still sound really solid. A microphone that's already boosted in certain areas can be a little bit harder to post-process than kind of a blank slate like the SM7B. But my true love for this microphone comes from being in metal bands and hardcore bands. This microphone on a screamer just sounds incredible. And it does a really good job of not clipping with those very intense, loud vocals. In my opinion, it's just perfect for that. Are there other microphones out there that are good for it? Absolutely. But this is just my go-to when it comes to stuff like that. But the question that this video's been about, do I personally recommend the SM7B when it comes to podcasting? Like I said before, it isn't my first choice. I do love the RE20. And there are other microphones out there that are more expensive, that are fantastic, like the Earthworks microphones, and a lot of others. I just don't have time to name them all. But my answer to the question, do I recommend it for podcasting, is a little bit more complicated. Bottom line, I do recommend it. I think it's a fantastic microphone in a lot of different ways. However, I don't think it's necessary for podcasting. It can be overkill, it can be overrated. But does it mean it doesn't sound amazing on podcasts? No, it does sound amazing. Especially if you're willing to put the work in and do some post-processing, it is fantastic. And you can get some hardware like vocal compressors or limiters for it. It'll sound great. But I absolutely don't think it is the end-all be-all podcast microphone. I don't think it's necessary, but I think it's fantastic. Thank you for watching this gigantic Shure shootout. If you've stuck through it the whole time, you are a badass. But hopefully this helped you out in some way, helped you decide if any of these microphones are going to work for you. I do want to say a big thank you to every subscriber out there, but the biggest thank you to all the lovely members out there. Oh, would you just look at those super fantastically sexy names? Oh my goodness. Nothing else gets me going like a good name on a list of the Audio Hotline members. Yeah. But seriously, a big thank you to everyone that's watching this, and I'll see you audio nerds next time.